Hello, dear chess lovers. It's black to play in this position. What should black play? Can you find that decisive move that wins the game for black in this position? Today we are discussing why queens are the terrible defenders in chess, folks. Tying down your queen to a defensive task is like using a golden lock to tie down your bike. Your lock will be stolen and your bike will be gone anyways. That was actually an analogy that was made by Jan Markos in his beautiful book, Under the Surface. I will talk about this in length in today's episode, but I will also logically break it down for you. Why we should generally avoid giving a defensive task to our queens in chess. The logic is very simple actually, because queens are the most valuable pieces. Any other piece can attack the queen and force her to move away, correct? Because the queens must react to the attack against any other pieces, because you don't want to exchange your queen with lower value pieces. So queens are easily dislodged from their squares, thus their defensive duty will be easily broken. In this position, for example, the best move for black is, you guessed it right, f5. Why? Well, this queen on g4 was tied down in preventing mate in 1, right? Already here, we understand this thing. This queen on f2 is always threatening this mate in 1. The king is not safe on h5. And white's queen is like a golden lock, right? Tied down in guarding the square h4. In this case, the queen is not guarding a pawn, but a specific square. Your queen must fulfill this defensive function. Your king cannot move, terribly stuck. And that's the worst case scenario for our queens, because a single pawn like that, this stupid little pawn, can chase the queen away, thus force her to move away. And if you pay attention to this position, folks, this queen has almost nowhere to escape. Where can the queen go that can still fulfill the function of stopping queen h4 mate? If you take on f5, well, queen h4 mate, and the game is over, right? Again, very short and sweet calculation. And if you go to a4, I guess, right? That's the only way for us to keep in contact with this. Well, the queen is also sort of eyeing this d7 square, by the way. It checks. That's why I would say either b5 or queen takes f3 wins for black, correct? Queen takes f3 check, and your king has no square to escape. You have to play this move, and obviously I win the game like this very, very easily, right? So from this position, we already understand one thing. This queen is tied down and can be easily chased away with a low value piece. In this case, this was a pawn. It can be a knight, a bishop, or a rook as well, right? So that's why, folks, this example teaches us a very important lesson. Generally, we don't want to defend stuff with our queens. Our queens, just like with the black queen here, are designed to attack. They are great attackers. They are so mobile. They can create double attacks. In this case, this queen is a beautiful attacker, and this queen is a terrible defender, as you can easily see from this position. Now, let's apply this lesson to this position. It's white to play, folks. I will give you two choices. Knight takes f6 or knight b6. What would you say? How do you decide on these moves? And we are talking about the blunder check process in this position, folks. A very important, crucial part of chess calculation. Before you play your moves, you have to engage in a safety check, blunder check. You have to make sure your opponent doesn't defeat your move by a forcing move. And you must gain some signals from the board to be suspicious about your moves. And that's what we are training in this video. Knight b6. Let's blunder check this move, folks. Imagine that you want to play knight b6 because it looks like a beautiful move, hitting the rook, hitting the bishop. What can be wrong with that move? At first sight, this looks like a good positional move for white. But see what you're doing, a logical breakdown. By going knight b6, you're tying down your queen in a defensive function, correct? Because your knight is a loose piece, hit once and defended only once. So you're relegating your queen to a defensive function if you choose to go knight b6 in this position, right? And since you already know that queens are the worst defenders in chess, something should trigger in your brain to double check, triple check this move, because the queen can be easily lodged from its defensive duty, right? And now please tell me, folks, why this move is a blunder. Please engage in a blunder check, very sweet and short calculation, to tell me that this move is a huge mistake for white. And you're a great player if you already spotted knight b6, c5 for black, and the queen has no way to guard your knight on b6. I won't put it on the board. I want you to visualize from this position because that's what you must do in actual games. Imagine you're going to play knight b6. You have to visualize the move c5, hitting the queen with the cheapest piece, the pawn, and your knight will be captured on the next move, right? Because your queen has no contact with that knight on b6 anymore. Let's put it on the floor, folks. That's a beautiful blunder. Knight b6, tying down your queen to a defensive post, allowing c5, and this queen has no way to guard the knight on b6 anymore. That's a beautiful lesson that you can already apply, right, to a crucial blunder check process in chess. But you see, this process is not blind. Otherwise, you lose on time. If you look at every single forcing move, check, capture, threat, you can lose on time. Thus, we are gaining cues from the environment by logical breakdowns. We know that knight b6 will involve a tied down queen. A defensive function will be given to our queen. And this should trigger this mechanism in your brain to really be suspicious about this move. And then you search for their next move, of course, a forcing move c5, but a very logical forcing move to chase the queen away from its defensive post. Thus, you understand that's a blunder. Thus, knight takes f6 is a much stronger move. After takes, the queen can capture on d6, and obviously white is a clear edge in this position. Now, I will show you one more example. Black played the move g5, and in the actual game, white player blindly captured the pawn on g5. Instead of developing their knight to d2 and e4, which would be the best move, white player blindly took the pawn on g5. I made a course about this on Chessable, the value of pawns. In this case, this was not really great because by capturing on g5, they activated the opponent's rook. Suddenly, the white king is not feeling safe anymore. And here comes my question. How should we guard this bishop on g5, right? Give yourself some choices. Namely this, queen d2 or rook g1 in this position. Please blunder check both of these moves. Maybe one of them is a blunder. But also tell me a nice sequence to verify your thoughts. Okay, folks, first stop the video, please. Find the good move for white. How would you guard your bishop? Then we are talking. The best move for white in this position, folks, is very naturally rook g1 because you defend your bishop, but also you guard the g2 square against the bishop g2 checks, correct? And yes, it's a maybe slightly better version for white, but black definitely has counterplay. White has to be so careful. In the actual game, the white player committed a chess crime with queen d2, not only giving a defensive duty to their queen, but also hindering their development, correct? That's why that move is a clear chess crime, and chess crimes are punished in chess usually. And you tell me black's next move. Well, this queen was guarding f3 before, no longer. Can the queen exploit that? I told you, queens are great attackers in chess. They are designed to attack weaknesses and targets. And here, black creates a double attack on the loose bishop on g5, also the loose pawn on f3 with the move queen d5. Beautiful queen centralization, and black is winning because white has no way to parry both of these threats. Our queen is now tied down in guarding our bishop, and we have no way to stop the threat on f3 as well. We have to move our bishop, but then queen f3 check will result in a mate in 2, correct? Incredible. White was having a great position if he didn't take the pawn on g5 but played knight e2, but blindly capturing pawns and then tying down their queen on the bishop led to a resignation on the next move, right? White just resigns. No moves left. So I'm showing you these positions, folks, because of its multi-purposeness. You see, this example teaches us a couple of interesting points. We should never capture pawns blindly, but check the king's safety first. And we should not generally give a defensive function to our queen. If we choose to give a defensive function, we have to be so careful that our moves won't be refuted by a forcing move. Relevant example from a student game, folks. White just played the move queen e2 in this position, Black is lacking development, okay? But black has 2 pawns for that. Black actually chased after some pawns with the queen early on. One very important pawn, including a central pawn on d4. So if black consolidates, the future looks bright for black. Right now, if you take on f4, then you allow queen b5 invasions, and that looks terribly dangerous. Black should not go there. So now my question is this. You see a move like queen e2, which clearly signals queen b5 check, right? The opponent's last move and the threats you're facing. Queen b5 check is very serious. What should black play, folks? You stop the video and you tell me the best move for black in this position. You're a great player if you defended the b5 square with your cheapest piece, namely the pawn. Pawns are the best defenders in chess because they are the cheapest unit, right? Your pawns cannot be really chased away, removing the defender kind of tactics because they're the cheapest units. Okay? But in the actual game, the black player played the move queen a4. That's a semi-chess grind because he was relegating his queen to a defensive task. Now, this queen is attacking and this queen is purely defending against queen b5. So I want you to look at the passivity of this move, folks. Queen a4 only signifies a defense of a specific square. Our queens are not designed for that. Even though there's no direct hit on the queen on a4 right now, this will haunt black in the long run, right? You're always going to face these issues later on, and you will need that pawn move at some point anyways at some point, right? So here comes also the value of this. a6 is a move that must be played at some point for black because this is a very serious threat, queen b5, right? And you don't want to tie down your queen on that single defensive duty. Also look at this. Now you're totally giving up on your ideals of winning that hanging bishop 2, right? Because if you take that bishop right now, yes, that's very dangerous. Queen b5 check is coming, and then queen takes b7s are coming, right? Everything is hanging, comes knight f3, and look at the king on d8, just looks terribly stuck. And all of white pieces are coming. This move comes with check, for example. You have to sacrifice the exchange. And right, I just can show a couple of more moves, rook b7 invasions. I mean, your king is totally unsafe in this position, right? White is already winning in this position because of the king safety difference. So obviously that's clear. We already have up 2 pawns. We don't want to capture the bishop. We don't need more material. What we need is a secure king, okay? Our king must survive this middle game. So this judgment was correct. You must do something about the move queen b5. But the execution was so wrong. He chose to tie down their queen or defensive function rather than a single pawn on a6. If you go a6, then yes, they can take on b7, but still, right, this pawn is stopping queen b5 checks, and there is no direct threat you're facing. Then you can even take the bishop. You can use your queen in a very active way. You can say, fine, now I've won a piece as well. Come prove your point. Yes, you can take on f7, but after rook h7, my king is still very safe. There is no queen b5 invasions. In fact, this queen cannot really join the attack that easily. This knight is misplaced. That knight is not dangerous because of the no knight d6 checks, right? And suddenly, black is having a beautiful position. For example, I can show you a couple of more moves. Bishop d6 is a great move. Hitting that knight as well. Knight f3. You can even play g5 to neutralize that rook on the 7th rank, folks. And after takes, black is having a beautiful position. Our king is so safe. And we have also extra piece. Black is having a winning position. And again, look at the function of that single pawn on a6 that is stopping all kind of queen invasions. That's a beautiful problem, beautiful puzzle. There is ramifications, folks. So what's the lesson? Next time you're about to tie down your queen on a defensive duty, please think twice. And if a pawn can replace that function, that's usually a much better choice. And finally, as a homework position, folks, it's black to play. What should black play? There's only one clean way for victory for black in this position. Please evaluate the position. Look at the entire board. Judge this properly. Again, it's queens on the board. And I want you to first go through this logical chain of thinking, what you're seeing and so on. And then come up with some candidate moves for black and analyze those candidates and tell me what should black play with some short lines as well. You can just write to me on YouTube, okay? With a clear evaluation in the end. Folks, I made this video for practical reasons. First of all, we are having a logical breakdown. Logical thinking is huge in chess because we are deeply engaged in the why questions, because only then you can transfer this knowledge to your games, right? Transfer happens when you deeply engage with the material and understand not only surface features, not only rote memorizations, but deeper structures. And the why question is so crucial for us to be able to transfer the skill to our games. You will never see those positions again in your life, right? Not the same ones, but very similar ones will appear in your games. So the gist of this lesson is that the queen is the worst defender in chess because any other piece can chase the queen away, removing the defender tactics, right? So you have to be very careful before tying down your queen to a defensive task. As Jan Markos says, tying down your queen to a defensive duty is like using a golden lock to lock your bike, right? The lock will be gone. Also, your bike will be stolen. Hopefully, the lessons are clear. You can even write a summary to me on YouTube to consolidate those lessons. You can describe this to your friends to deeply engage with the material. That's also great for learning, folks. And I will catch you next videos for similar issues, deep learning in chess. And please give me a like and subscribe if you like this video. That's very important, folks, for me to be able to produce similar content for you. I'm here to help you improve your game and waiting for your feedback on YouTube. Thanks.